Vince Staples' Ramona Park Broke My Heart album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest from Vince Staples, Compton-based rapper. He has been a staple, no pun intended, in my rap listening over the last 10 or 15 years. Like, this guy blew my damn mind in 2014 with his mini album or EP, whatever you want to call it, Hell Can Wait. While not very long, it was fired up. It was lyrically really exciting, and it really just seemed to be like the best of both worlds from Vince Staples. We had bangers like Fire and Screen Door, but we also had underrated gems like Limos. Vince was off to a hell of a start. And by now, if you've been subscribed to this channel, you will know my thoughts on Summertime '06 as well. It's one of my favorite debut full-length albums in modern hip-hop. But there was also like a weird goth element at times. Like, Vince was a very tortured soul at the end of the day, and I loved some of the gloomier tracks on here as well. His follow-up album, Big Fish Theory, is just as exciting and showed Vince going in a much more experimental route. To me, at the time, I thought that Vince was one of the most fearless MCs out there at the time. And while short, I still think FM has so much great material on it. Now, last year, we saw Vince break out his self-titled album, and it's fine. It's really fine, but that's about it. You know, the thing is about it is Vince is still a master storyteller, and I love the gloomier production on this track and the more subtle beats as well as his delivery on most of the track. But I wasn't wowed by it. As a matter of fact, the last time I was really wowed by anything that Vince did was Big Fish Theory. And you know, I kind of worried leading up to this album because it did seem to be coming out of nowhere, and the singles I thought were kind of hit and miss. Let's chat about this thing. This album starts off with The Beach, and honestly, I think it's a really great intro. Since day one, I really thought that Vince has been a master storyteller. In this, we get nothing different, honestly. We get a gloomy beat, a very intense performance from Vince. It just really sets the stage for this album. It's got some really great details as well. It's short, but it really does its job. Then we get Free the Homies, and honestly, it's a banger. It's got this sort of throwback 90s hip-hop feel to it, which I think he does pretty well. It's a gloomy, rainy day banger with a big somber side, which sounds a lot like what he was doing on Summertime '06. And you know what? It works really well, and it ends up being freaking deep, man. Magic with Mustard is just a really great banger. And you know what? It took a little while to grow on me. This is not what I usually look to Vince Staples for. But Mustard's production on this track is great. Vince's flow is fantastic. It's a very solid hip-hop single, and once again, I think it's a pretty good medium for Vince. It is a little bit more accessible, but he does that without really changing, you know, his real game plan at the end of the day. When Sparks Fly is magic, this on all fronts is exactly where I love hearing Vince Staples. I love the very jazzy, very gloomy, rainy day beat that we get here. It's a little jazzy in its own real way, and you know what I like the best is how Vince really lets this one cook a little bit. You know, he doesn't just blow his way right into a verse. He lets the atmosphere build up, and I think that's what makes it so memorable. It might be my favorite track here. Papercuts is really great as well. This is home for me. I love the very hypnotic, meditative beat and the very intense performance we get out of Vince Staples here, even if he is a little bit more low-key. But one thing that is not low-key are these visuals. They are intense as ever. And the hook that we get here is just so mesmerizing. One of my favorites here. Player Ways is really good too, even though, once again, it's not necessarily what I look to Vince for. But it's actually a knockout. It is so heartbroken. It is so sad. A lot of this album is very gloomy. This is easily Vince's most heartbroken work, but I don't think that works against him. I love the beat too. It is just so silky smooth. I mean, when Vince focuses, he is just an absolute master. And Mama's Boy is kind of home for me as well. I love his very hushed vocals on this track, the dreary samples, the intense lyrics that are just so visual once again. This is right where I love to hear Vince. It's not really coming off like old hashed either, you know, it just sounds like home. But I still have a problem with Vince's consistency these days. For one, we have Nameless very early on in the album. I mean, I've had this issue with Vince since Summertime '06. I always feel like Vince's interludes have so much substance and really pack a punch at the end of the day, but I don't think he fleshes those ideas out enough. I mean, yeah, this certainly makes a statement, but I feel like his raps on this album make more of a statement. That's just me, though. We also get East Point Prayer featuring Lil Baby. All around, this is just not for me. This is not the kind of beat that I ever want to hear Vince Staples on. ever. And while I usually like Vince at his gloomier side, he just sounds bored half of this track. And I'm not into Lil Baby's feature either. We also have Lemonade featuring Ty Dolla $ign, which I was really looking forward to just because Ty and Vince have always sort of had chemistry together. I mean, look no further than Feels Like Summer. It's a freaking banger, but this is really generic and just shows the two really not doing anything very exciting. I just know the two of them can do better because they've shown it in the past. I mean, this album overall, the good certainly outweighs the bad. Vince is still a master storyteller. He's still, one of my favorite MCs out there, but I'm still not wowed by this project. DJ Quick is very middle of the road. I mean, it still has a lot going for it, even if it is a little paint by the numbers rainy day rap. I mean, it's gloomy, it's somber, it is bleak as hell, but this sounds like leftovers from his self-titled album from last year. It's just a little short on ideas for my liking. Slide it's perfectly fine, but it doesn't really give me that gut punch that tracks like, I don't know, anything on Summertime '06 or Big Fish Theory gave me. Once again, this sounds like leftovers from his album he put out last year. Bang That featuring Mustard is so much less interesting than the other track that he put out here with Mustard, the Magic track. This is night and day. This is one of the worst tracks here. It's just so middle of the road. These two have chemistry. They've shown it on other tracks here. I mean, Vince's performance is fine on this track, but everything else about it's very underwhelming. I have a lot of the same feelings on The Spirit of Monster Cody as well. Once again, we have an interlude that has this gut punch, this really great sample that we get here, this audio recording that could have been so powerful if Vince, paired it with a track or like really expanded on some of the ideas of it. But then Vince whips out some of the best tracks on this album in its final moments. Rose Street is incredible. This track is so freaking smooth. His form alone on this track is wowing. I love the booming production. I love this sort of Twilight beat that we get. And at the core of it, Vince is still very much so being himself. Once again, I stress this. This is his most heartbroken album, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And The Blues is a really great finale, too. I mean, it's far from a banger. If you were looking for one to end this album off, you're going to be a little disappointed. But truthfully, on this track, Vince sounds exhausted, but not in a bored kind of way. He sounds emotionally, traumatized and really just emotionally drained. It ends up wrapping things up perfectly, much like Summertime did on Summertime '06. This album's fine. Once again, much like last year's self-titled album, it's fine. Vince's flow is on top form. He is still himself. The production on most of this album is great. The guy's a master storyteller. But I'm ready for him to take the next artistic leap, as he did on albums like Summertime '06 and Big Fish Theory. I'm ready for Vince to take the next big leap in his career. Honestly, for now, if this is the material we're getting, it's certainly not bad at all. As a matter of fact, it's still pretty great. He's still, on top of his game. But personally, I'm ready for him to take the next leap. This is fine, though. I'm feeling a decent 7 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. Until next time, have a great day, guys.